Josiah.
Okay, that's just a damn shit.
David and Solomon and temple dedication and all that. It pops up and then it disappears. And it makes me question the entire timeline that we have as this linear, trustworthy, face value timeline that the Bible sets out for us. It makes me go, whoa. Like, the oldest mention of this could have been written much later after Ezra and Nehemiah, for all I know. I mean, you get what I'm doing in my mind is like I'm just questioning, and that's taboo for a lot of them because they don't really like the... It creates uncertainty.
Yan.
People like to have more confidence. It's the same problem we have in the New Testament. I have a scholar, and I'll just mention it, and let you take over the old here and get it into wherever you want to go.
God bucket.
There are new scholars on the block. Nina Lindsay is one radical in terms of her views, but she's questioning the 7 golden letters of Paul. I use the term golden just to be funny. But you're not allowed to question the 7 authentic letters of Paul. Those are foundational for every biblical scholar in the entire New Testament discussion right now. If you take that rug, everything they built, from the Markan priority to its dependence on Paul to how we understand the origins of Christianity, really it radically questions everything we think we understand. She kind of pulled that rug and said, what if these are epistolary fictions written in the second sophistic? And that's taboo. So it just seems like that's the kind of problem that we're up against with a lot of stuff here. Maybe not as extreme, but...
I ain't talking stuff either. I'm talking about stuff.
You're raising a good, really good... several really good points, and I think that's very important. I don't even know how to call it a question, but really a set of questions and an entire worldview, if you will. It's much more than that. And the thing is,
move you fucking slut.
Biblical studies in the biblical world, or the biblical scholarship, people look for an anchor. And so the anchor could be Josiah, right? And the discovery of what people assume is Deuteronomy and all of that. And so for a lot of people, that's an anchor. You have to have that anchor, otherwise you don't have a focal point that you can focus on and that gives you this. And if you do have this anchor, you can start creating all kinds of theories and proposals that are based on this anchor. And if you don't have it, suddenly everything becomes fuzzy, and you don't know where to put in the leg next, and you don't know where to go, you don't know what how to proceed, and people
you motherfucking slut.
Anchor. I don't want a solid anchor unless it's solid. Unless I have extra biblical data to support it. And that's the thing about me, and not just me. I mean, scholars in my
oh my good goddamn! I fucked up.
We don't necessarily look for an anchor. We want, or I'll talk about myself. I won't mention names, but. For me, what's important is when I look for an anchor, it's always extra biblical.
Yeah.
So it's always something that I... So for example, I mentioned several times already in our talks and others that I published an article a few years ago on the Book of Amos, on the oracles against the nations.
Oh my good God fucking damn.
To me, and so far no one has questioned this so pretty convincingly, that only the oracles against the nations, so only the first part of the Book of Amos can be very confidently dated to the end of the 8th, really to the beginning of the 7th century before the Common Era. It's pretty old, pretty early. And I'm not saying it was written down then. But the oral tradition is to be dated to that period. I'm not even saying that there was a prophet called Amos. In my article, I call it the Amosian school. So it's a school that is a school of prophets that is ascribed to the name Amos. I don't know. We can't know if there was a person like that, and if there was, fine.
We could if we had external sources to help us, right? That was your point. Okay.
Do you know that in antiquity they often ascribe schools of thought or schools of prophecy to a certain well-known name of a some mythical prophet that was well-known area. So I assume that something like that might have happened a little again. I'll be the first, or I'll be one person to be absolutely overjoyed if we found an actual, extra biblical piece of evidence that would show that there was an actual Amos. I'm not opposed to that. For me, it's just important for everything I say to be based on data, on actual data, and not just a priori project into the text. That's the thing that I really fear, and that has been very, very detrimental to our field.
Before we get Zoroastrianism on this issue that you're pointing up right now, though, I think it's necessary that why do you have such a caution for the a priori allowing the biblical text to have that kind of evidence, where you say, why need better evidence? Is that because you have seen time and time again how propagandistic, how literary this text is, and it does not function and operate as a historical text in the manner in which you would want historical sources to be? Comparing it to, let's say, actual annals of kings from the Persian, from the Babylonian, from the Assyrian, or whatever. You're looking and anchoring and seeing how things are written, and you go, this is questionable. This doesn't even function, look, operate. I'm asking you, like throwing things at you to get your thoughts. Why don't
it's a great question, and I understand where it's coming from. So there's a number of answers to this. I mean, a number of levels to this answer. First of all, of course, the annals of the kings are propagandistic. By definition, also. So I'm not saying that the royal inscriptions are always propagandistic, and that's part of the genre. And so I'm not saying that
motherfucking bishop
or more propagandistic than this. It's just right. All of them are, and all of them need to be studied with a grain of salt. However, the royal inscriptions and the annals were written down, propagandistic as they may be, they were written down once and they were not edited again and redacted for generations later. By different schools of thought and different sects vying for power and all of these things, whereas the biblical text was. And so it's not. So I can say that the annals, royal inscriptions, all of that were propagandistic texts that reflect a specific point in time. One specific point in time. Whereas the biblical text is a battleground. I think I mentioned this before.
God
the biblical text is a very, it's basically a battlefield that is scarred by centuries. Most
God fucking damn it.
Most of that battle was concentrated in the second and third and second centuries before the Common Era, especially the second century. But it is a battlefield between different schools of thought, different sects, different ideologies, and all of them vying for power and trying to get their version into the authorized text. And that's what we see. I mean, that's actually what makes one of the things that makes the Bible
because you
so
seriously
fucked
up.
It is a battlefield.
Stupid.
And it's not just a battlefield of ideas of the Jewish
stupid motherfucker.
But I mean, we were talking about Persian influences.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible, the power of the Bible. And its richness and the fact that it was able historically to impact the world, really, in many ways, is due to geography.
You suck my motherfucking dick.
It was written in the part of the world. If you look at the map, look where Israel or Palestine is, and you see that this is the bridge between Europe, Asia, and Africa. So all the powers in history, all the great powers of history, left their imprint here on this parcel of land.
No, you slut.
And all of this comes together in the biblical text, is reflected in the biblical text, but then is edited and adapted in the biblical text, digested by the different authors and rethought, reconsidered, manipulated, and all of these different ways. And so you have the richness, in many ways, you have the richness of humanity coming together.
Come on, you slant-eyed slut. You stupid motherfucker.
And it's, I mean, what's in a word, I mean, it's just the humanity of the Bible. I mean, it's humanity coming together, and it's just a product of the geography that it was in. Being this place where every single major culture had to go through, right? To produce. So
motherfucker.
The geography created it.
Move, you whore.
And that's what really
if I live on the outskirts of the United States, let's say, I'm not seeing all the popular stuff that's going on, but let's say I live in one of these states that's just between two very profound and impactful states in the United States, and like most ideas derive from these major players, and I'm between them, and I'm constantly seeing the ideas floating around. I'm going to incorporate some of those very
you should have won that fucking
ideas literally into our tradition, orally, and then eventually literally into pen on paper or on stone. Obviously, Garrett, you have some interesting stuff, but that's influenced from various regions as well. So I'm sitting there. That's way back. But I'm saying Bible-wise, let's bring it right back.
No, that's gonna.
So we're back tracks on the train. Feel free to elaborate on other details. But if we looked at Moses, looked at this outside evidence in the Persian,
come on, you dick
Hellenist
sucker.
period about Zoroastrianism, apart from the fact that the bush is burning, what cues or what evidence externally makes you not go, this story, we know Moses recorded the Bible time when it was 13th century Bronze Age. This story is 10th century. What makes you go, it has to be up here at least, and then if not, potentially later. Because that gets into kind of the point, right? They're using and absorbing the great ideas and Zoroastrianism.
Man, this is really starting to fucking piss me off.
One side note, love that. I hate doing this to you, but there's so much, and I know you're absorbing this. There's a book by
goddamn fucking Christ.
He's a classicist and then studied Bible. He wrote a book called Argonauts of the Desert. And I know this is a very, very radical position where mainstream critical scholarship doesn't take. But he starts in the opening chapter assuming that the biblical text is actually written much later, as we have it clearly, and then the redactors are working off of Greek sources. And they're narrating these things using Greek sources. And what he did in the Burning Bush episode is he saw Plato's cave. And so he saw something going on with shadows and all that kind of stuff. And he thinks there's something there.
Fucking dick.
What about Plato, though? Did Plato not find Zoroastrianism influential? So you could even find ideas in Plato potentially coming out of the fire and elements, because different Greeks had different ideas of what elements might have been the original elements of the universe and whatnot. But the fire might have potentially influenced Plato indirectly from the Bible. You don't necessarily need to go to Plato for Moses. You could go just to Zoroastrianism. So I'm throwing out a view in the mix and to get your thoughts.
You suck.
Yeah. So okay. Well, we veered.
Fucking dick.
So look. I mean, all Indo-Iranian cult systems have some kind of fire veneration. The Romans as well. I mean, you have fire. Fire plays a major role. And I write that in the article, of course. And in the article, my goal is to identify what is unique to Zoroastrianism's relationship with fire in the Achaemenid period, as opposed to
I got one word of advice, you slut. Motherfucking resign
sphere of Indo-Iranian cultic systems. And so, now you're showing Xerxes and before the fire holder. We can see this and say, well, yeah, of course there was fire veneration at the time of Xerxes. In fact,
bitch, you suck my dick, bitch.
In Darius the first time. And this seal impression that you're showing now, that is absolutely critical to my position. If you scroll down further, I show it again. So here you see another person is standing in front of a fire holder, sometimes called a fire altar. And this one has the color is still intact from the Achaemenid period.
Wow.
And so we see actually basically this is what
now buck up and put me in check so I can dick up that fucking knife.
A very high-ranking administrator and a military leader, some kind of general of the army or local governor maybe.
So this
person standing in front of the fire altar holding Barson twigs. First of all, that he's not a priest. He is the sponsor of literature. So in every liturgy has a sponsor. Sometimes the priest can sponsor it, but you have sponsors that are often from the laity that sponsor the particular liturgy on that particular day. And they are shown here. They're given honor as sponsors. And if you scroll further down in the so here this is an important point. So you stop here.
I just got myself a fucking whore.
Particular papyrus. So this particular portion that is in red here. This is where we have the Atodon. We talked about it several times already on your channel and Neil's channel as well. Where the Yahwists/Jews, if one prefers to look at it that way, they have an Atodon in their temple or associated with their temple. An Atodon is a fire holder, and this is the Zoroastrian term, a technical cultic term. Atodon for a fire holder. So we know, and it is absolutely documented, that Zoroastrian, the most intimate Zoroastrian acts were associated with
just get rid of that fucking knife
in the Achaemenid period. That is absolutely documented. And from that, it should not surprise us that since Yahwistic temples, or at least we have one, but there's no reason to doubt that this was the case not just in Elephantine, but elsewhere as well. So having an Atodon in your temple, meaning a holder of a divine fire that is venerated, that should never go out, that has a pedigree, that has a genealogy, that is pure, that needs to be kept pure, that all of that. Which is what the way the Bible presents the perpetual fire in the temple as well.
God fucking dick. God damn
this was an actual historical fact that appears in primary sources in the Achaemenid period. We can understand that the biblical version of the never-ending fire.
Fucking Christ.
Comes from
goddamn Christ.
From Zoroastrianism already. So this is an extremely important point because it shows the very direct and intimate impact of Zoroastrianism on Yahwism, Yahwistic cult practices in the Achaemenid period. So that's an extremely important data point to keep in mind as we approach the question of
God damn it,
we already
motherfucker.
have that data point to show that connection, that connecting line already existed. Now, question is, what do we do with it? How does
Goddamn fucking ghost.
This connection or this relationship evolve within Yahwism, and that you can scroll down and we can see where. So we'll probably come back to that, the area that you're scrolling over right now. But look at here. So this is the same seal impression from Persepolis that was found that is definitely datable to the Achaemenid period.
Jesus goddamn fucking cunt Christ.
Around around the first quarter of the 5th century of the Common Era. So here you have a fire altar. You have on the left-hand side you have a priest with tongs, basically just tending to the fire holder. Now notice the red frames here. So the priest that is tending to the fire holder, the arches of the feet are exaggerated to show that he is barefoot.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
The person, the sponsor of the asana, you look at his feet, and that's not you don't see the arches. These are boots. These are these are shoes like we saw.
No, you goddamn son of a bitch.
The relief from the scallion, the one that still had the collar on it. You saw boots. And so you see here that the artist who created this seal, the seal impression, made it very clear that this person, the priest, is barefoot in front of the fire.
Shit.
And that's a pretty big deal.
Kind of important when you take off your sandals, for this is holy ground.
Exactly. But even just from so I am a biblical scholar on one hand, but also I have several articles that have nothing to do with the Bible, Judaism, but only with ancient Zoroastrianism.
Right.
And within the field of Iranian studies or Zoroastrianism, we did not have. We knew that modern day Zoroastrian priests are barefoot. But we could not show that was the case in the Achaemenid period as well. And I didn't. It took me a while. I mean, I of course knew about the seal impression, but it took me a while to notice that detail. That the arches of the feet of the priest are exaggerated to show that he is barefoot. And compared to this other character in this very same image, where the feet are just these are just boots. And so this is first-hand proof from the Achaemenid period that the priests did serve in barefoot in front of the fire. Wow. Well, of course, as you noted, I mean, that is what's happening in the scene of the
he tells them to take them off. Like he's saying, why? I mean, you should ask the question, right? Why? I mean,
that's right.
It's holy ground.
That's right. It's holy ground, and that's exactly the way the Zoroastrians view the area around the fire holder is holy. And they remove the sandal as part of the ceremony. It's not that they can come in without sandals. In fact, they have this area where they stand on the sandals. I mean, after having removed it, they actually stand on them. With one toe over the other. It's very complex. I mean, it's a very involved thing. But the way the feet are, and the way the feet are outside the sandal. That's an entire an important element of the way the asana is observed. And so that particular portion of the asana is observed. So now we can show that this was the case already then. Again, like I said, methodologically, it is important for me to only base my analysis on elements that I can show actually existed in the Achaemenid period and are not and this is the case here. Absolutely. So you see in the scene
stupid.
And in the article, I get to quite an involved textual criticism discussion actually before this section here of what the original or what the I don't like to use the term original, but what the kind of the earlier versions of the text looked like before someone added the burning bush. If you note, I mean, if the entire pericope, the chapter, and even from the end of the second chapter of Exodus, and then into the burning bush or the call of Moses, you can read it very well, and that's what I'm proposing here in this page that you're showing.
Right.
I propose what would have been the earlier version before someone added the burning bush, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you read this version, you just take the scene of the burning bush out, and you basically attach the verse that came before it to the verse that came after that scene. It flows so naturally together. It's so clear that someone added that scene. In fact, in the Septuagint, in the Greek text, in the Greek version, that flows even better. I mean, there's just one word that really connects them really well that was removed in the, according to my analysis, in the Hebrew version. But so it makes perfect sense. It flows really well, and then someone adds this scene. Now you want to ask, why would someone add?
Stupid motherfucker.
I want to know.
So my analysis, this is very typical to the priestly source. So if you look at the priestly source, and by the way, when you talk about kind of documentary hypothesis, what I retain from it is basically what's called P non-P. So you have P as a source and non-P, which is an entire set of who knows what it is. It's just not P. And that is extremely complex. So I don't retain the entire documentary hypothesis in one disk, but I'm in this camp of P and non-P. But the P source is pretty well. Again, I'm not necessarily ascribing it to priestly sources.
You stupid goddamn shit-sucking motherfucker.
It certainly is very concerned with priestly things, and this is one of them. So the addition of the scene of the burning bush is intended to show Moses as basically the father of all priests, right? The all priest, the one that. So you have, I mean, the scene of the burning bush is basically
goddamn suck my goddamn.
Right? Someone added that. This story about Moses shepherding the flock of his father-in-law Jethro to Mount Sinai, and then seeing
this is really starting to piss me off.
The priestly editor here had this entire text of the call of Moses, where he always says to Moses, I've seen the suffering of my people, and I'm going to save them, and I'm going to send you to save them, and all that. That was the earlier text. And then they said, well, that's great that he. So this is the call of Moses. This is where he gets to become a hero. And by the way, in that
goddamn Holy Ghost fucking pieces out of here.
He's using a very popular literary trope to find a very popular goddamn fucking Christ hero. The deity is calling the hero to do something.
Goddamn Christ.
The hero is being chosen, and the hero
refuses again and again. Ghost.
Humble, he can't do it for this reason or that reason. All of these objections, that's a literary trope that
goddamn Ghost.
Very common.
Holy
Ghost. Very Hellenistic, and that particular trope is very common, very popular. Although you do find it in earlier cultures as well. But then,
Holy Ghost.
So you have the call of Moses, and the redactor says, well, okay, but we need to show this is Mount Sinai, so we need to show that the tabernacle begins here. This is
Holy
this is where the tabernacle,
Holy Ghost.
Of course, for the priestly redactor, it's important to put that authority of the tabernacle, which should become temple, as early as possible, where it all begins. So inject that idea there. And as I said earlier, I mean, we know that at least at Elephantine, they had a fire holder, a Zoroastrian fire holder at Elephantine.
God damn it.
The whole idea of the perpetual fire in the
suck my fucking dick.
Right.
Allows us to understand that there was probably also a fire holder in Jerusalem. So that the authors of the
you suck my goddamn
perpetual fire narrative that eventually made it into the biblical text were also familiar with the Zoroastrian idea of perpetual fire. So we have that in Elephantine, absolutely directly documented, and we have the echoes of this in the biblical text, allowing us to determine that there was probably also a fire holder, not just at Elephantine, but a similar fire holder was also in Jerusalem, probably also on Mount Gerizim, and other places.
Everywhere there was a
Yahwistic temple. Probably not just
holy goddamn
that was the empire, right? That's the empire.
Holy fucking
the
ghost.
impact and the cultic influence
Holy
of
fucking
the empire,
ghost.
as always happens.
Right.
And so, the priestly redactor probably had
God
a
fucking
very
holy
positive
ghost, damn it.
connection with the idea of perpetual fire that came from Zoroastrianism, but then was elaborated by the Taoists, and added that into what eventually became the biblical text. So, and then added the scene of the burning bush in order to give the call of Moses a priestly
Suck my fucking dick.
imprint, if you will, the seal of approval, priestly seal of approval, because otherwise it's not priestly at all. The entire scene has nothing to do with the priest, or with the tabernacle, or with the temple. So you add this scene as
You suck my motherfucking goddamn fucking dick.
liturgical addition, if you will, to the text to show that this is actually a priestly. The priest gives
Suck my motherfucking.
By the way, after the scene of the burning bush, it's never referred to again. I mean, if you again when you take it out of the story, you lose nothing.
Right.
Suck my
The
fucking
internal
dick.
consistency of the text. I mean, if you take it
Now
out,
fuck
basically
a
you
right
have
here.
Moses, God, Yahweh calling Moses, telling him that he saw the suffering of the people, and that he chooses Moses to send him to Pharaoh to let the people go, right? That's the story without the scene of the burning bush. It's basically just the regular kind of very Hellenistic call of the hero with all of the expected objections by the hero as to why he should not be
Now fuck a booty right here.
called, and it's pretty
Please fuck up
common
and
scene
god damn it.
that has nothing particular about it, but does explain how Moses was called. But then the fact that the editor had to add this is only in order to inject a priestly connection to Moses and to the tabernacle. Now the fact that he did that by basically showing a deeply Zoroastrian,
Suck my motherfucking dick.
Zoroastrian rite. That is truly fascinating. And again, because we know, I'm just repeating this here, but because we know that at least in one Yahwistic temple there was clearly a fire holder with a perpetual fire. The fact that the same, we don't have a perpetual fire holder from Jerusalem yet. We haven't found one, and we haven't found any reference to it yet. We might find in the future. But the fact that the redactors who were clearly familiar with the Jerusalem temple had this kind of so much. They added so much text that related to the perpetual fire into Leviticus, into the book of Numbers, into so many different places, into the depth of the sons of Aaron, for example, that died because they introduced non-divine fire to the altar. All of these texts that deal with the perpetual fire, these texts are derived from the Zoroastrian.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. That's what I was going to mention about the melting of the gold and this. If I might throw a little curveball here, what I was mentioning earlier about the Plato's allegory of the cave, right? This might be an additional piece of evidence that could help maybe even say, no doubt Zoroastrian, but also there might be an aspect that we could potentially date this episode to after Plato has already written his material, because In the cave scene, there's shadows on the wall. There's a fire.
Stupid goddamn motherfucker.
Right. Yeah, I'm just giving you the allegory.
Goddamn motherfucker.
So this is the only thing I would say that might connect or at least be relatable between the two. You already have it based on the fact that we have archaeological evidence. They're wearing no shoes next to the fire altar. There's similar linguistics, of course, within the Persian period in the actual writings by people who were writing in here.
That's something really important because another thing here in the scene of the burning bush is the fire. So when Moses approaches the fire, Yahweh is speaking from the fire.
Suck my fucking dick.
He's called Yahweh. In one place where he speaks, and in another place where he speaks, he's called the angel of Yahweh. So you have Yahweh and an emanation of Yahweh.
Right.
In the fire and as the fire. That is deeply Zoroastrian. I mean, basically having Ahura Mazda, for example, fire is considered to be the son of Ahura Mazda and an emanation of Ahura Mazda. And so to have the God and his emanation, which is uncreated. In some cases, we're talking about the divine fire. This is not a created fire.
Right.
It is a divine fire, and so this is an emanation.
You stupid motherfucker.
And that's exactly what happens here. We're talking in the burning bush, the fact that it does not burn, really, right?
Right.
This is a divine fire. This is not an earthly fire. This is not a created fire. This is not the fire that you would see created in creation. It's a fire that's beyond creation. And that's why it needs to be kept pure. That's why the sons of Aaron died because they polluted this pure fire. Korah and his companions. There's a lot of
swallowed by the earth.
Exactly.
The only thing I was getting at, because you've established in my mind, and I hope the viewers let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. I can go read the article, number one, but like. You've established this is Zoroastrian. There's no doubt. I'm just thinking icing on the cake potential connection here, right? Take Plato's cave, because I think Plato was inspired by thinkers of Persian persuasion. I mean, the Greek literally everywhere. There's no doubt. So the way that this scholar kind of framed it was to say, what else is in this episode? Freeing slaves in Egypt. So when you read that Plato's cave allegory, there's this constant where slaves in this illusion of slavery that we are slaves, and the good is the light. So when he comes out and sees the sun, the bright light burns all of fire. That's good in Plato's allegory. I think he gets Persian. I think he gets this from the Zoroastrian. But then again, maybe a classicist knows a little more about Plato that can help.
I know Plato really well. When I studied philosophy in France in Sorbonne, before I went into history.
Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch.
Right. I really studied Plato a lot, and
bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick.
Favorite ancient philosophers. I mean, I like the pre-Socratics as well, but I spent a lot of time on Plato and
specifically suck my motherfucking dick, bitch.
Throwing it out there.
Bitch, you suck.
I have no problem at all.
Bitch, you suck,
I just don't see the data. So I don't have any ideological problem with this, obviously. But I
stupid. Yep, I'm calling myself stupid
whatsoever. As I said, the overarching context where you have this call of the hero was very popular in Hellenistic.
I just got
not to say that there weren't older versions of this as well. But it was very, very popular in Hellenistic. I don't see this particular. I don't see the connection.
Oh,
I get it. Would you care if I read this with you just so that people at least can see it for themselves and be able to say, okay, read this
now fuck up
my
and
buddy
read
right? This is what he had to say, and of course, I want to just read it real quick, and then maybe get your thoughts here. I agree. I think you're like, it's not super solid here, right? Notice the core elephantine too in his book.
Holy dick sucker.
I just had it. Hold on. Forgive me. Maybe I went up, down.
Come on, you motherfucking
Okay.
dick sucker.
Book 7 of the Republic of Plato, through the voice of Socrates, describes a group of people that have lived all their life chained in a dark cave. They were only able to see the inner wall of that cave, while shadows of objects passing by outside were projected. Socrates imagines that one of these prisoners is freed from his chains and forced to climb to the surface. Once he goes outside, sees the outside light, his eyes cannot take it at first. As he gets used to daylight, he understands what he considered to be realities within the cave were only shadows of mere real objects. He then comes to understand that the light of the sun is the idea of the good. He will therefore pity his comrades who held the shadows in the cave. Who held the shadows in the cave for deities. Socrates wants this man to be forced to go back inside the cave, although he will protest, to free his comrades and bring them out to sidelight. Yet they would probably not believe him, hold him for a fool, or even want to kill him. Plato Republic, and there's a source. This allegory illustrates Plato's theory of ideas. Our world is itself a projection of a greater reality. We cannot apprehend, for our senses are limited. Only the philosopher may contemplate the original idea of the good, which is a metaphor for the only God, the same who created the world in Plato's Timaeus. The Platonic allegory can be seen as a framework, so he's using it as a framework of the Exodus story. The Israelites had become numerous people in Egypt, and the new Pharaoh makes them slaves. Exodus 1. Moses escapes this fate, flees to the land of Midian. Exodus 2. There God appears to Moses in the burning bush and tells him to go back to free the Israelites from slavery, so as to lead them to the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Exodus 3-4. But the colony that God tells Moses to found is the state of Plato's laws, a state divided into 12 tribes and governed by excellent laws, as we will see now. The biblical writer's astuteness lies in freeing the prisoners of the cave to bring them to the ideal state, an idea that is already implicit in the Republic. In the Republic, the city is surveyed because it represents soul on a greater scale. In my opinion, biblical Israel, as well is at the same time the ideal state and a soul. Now that's a speculation. But anyway, in Exodus, this soul is freed from the illusions of an oppressive royal regime that a pharaoh brought to the desert to meet the true God who will be revealed in the law. That the prisoners would not want to leave their prison, and that they even think of killing their liberators found in Exodus when Pharaoh chases Israel. First, the Israelites complained because they preferred to serve the Egyptians rather than die in the wilderness. Further, they complained about the bitterness of the waters of Mara, and Moses feared that they would stone him. In Plato's dialogues, these considerations foretell Socrates' tragic fate, for he was put on trial for piety and executed by the Athenians. Plato implicitly compared them to the inhabitants of the cave, worshipping shadow gods, and unable to understand Socrates' divine philosophy. A Platonic framework crosses the biblical narrative, one that will be more apparent when analyzing the legislative books. So mind you, this is just one episode in his whole what he's trying to build a case for. But I know that you are.
Remember we talked earlier about
Suck my motherfucking dick, bitch.
Way too many articles that I'm asked to review. And I've had like 5 this past month and 7 just
Suck my motherfucking
6 weeks, and I still have now another one. I get a lot of stuff like this.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is stuff that I am very close to rejecting.
Right.
No, I don't. I'm not. You know how I don't like parallelomania.
Yep.
And this is simply there is no support for any of this.
Bitch, you suck my motherfucking
A lot of imagination.
Yep.
And I understand the parallelomania.
Yep.
But it's so weak.
Bitch, you suck my motherfucking
I wanted you to I didn't want to straw man when I brought it up though, because in case he's like, okay.
I understand, you know what, even for the viewers, I mean, you get a taste of how we work as well. I mean, behind the scenes, there's a lot of things like this, and that needs to be peer reviewed. And sometimes it gets through peer review, but that's rare. I think
you're gonna do this fucking shit. Well, Portugal goddamn black ass was Stalin. I am not talking Joseph Stalin either. I'm talking about Stalin.
First chapter before he goes through this whole thing. The entire first chapter is him laying out his method and why he is already